Today on America's Court with Judge Ross.
I stand proud behind my whole team of licensed, experienced mechanics. This lady clearly has an attitude. She was uncooperative. She would not.
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine that. In my courtroom, it's about equity and fairness. You want him to pay $628.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, knock my socks off. Justice should be more than just some foreign concept. I actually want you to learn something. The law talks about something may in fact be true, but can they prove it? And that's what's tough.
Fair, firm, compassionate. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. Darlene Coleman claims her motorcycle was ruined after it was serviced at the defendant's repair shop. Ms. Coleman is suing Eddie Richards in the amount of $3,395. Mr. Richards claims the bike was in perfect running order when it left his shop and says the plaintiff is just looking to get a new motorcycle.
All rise. Remain standing and come to order. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Kevin Ross presiding.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated.
All parties been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Deputy Thomas. Ms. Coleman, you had a problem with your motorcycle.
Yes, sir.
Now you want a new one.
Yes, sir.
How does that work out?
Well, let me explain that I am not a fair weather weekend rider, sir. Motorcycling
You are serious about your motorbiking.
Yeah, my dad started racing dirt track after Vietnam, and 10 years ago when he passed, my mother and I started riding together.
Nice.
I won't even date a man who doesn't have a motorcycle.
Okay, I'm scared of you. Watch out now. All right.
So needless to say, I know when something's wrong. I test rode over 30 bikes, took 2 years to get mine, and she's perfect. Her name is Mona.
All right, Mona. Don't hurt nobody out there, Mona.
I like the way she hums.
All right, you like the way she hums. That's funny. All right, so you are not, this is not your first picnic as it relates to riding bikes, understanding bikes, having a biker philosophy.
Correct, sir. So when I noticed that there was a little bit of a chatter coming from the bike, I wanted to get it addressed immediately.
How long had you had this bike?
I've had the bike for 6 years.
And in the 6 years, this was the first time you had an issue come up with it?
Yes, I did buy it used, but I had a mechanic check it out because it only had about 13, 14 miles on it.
Did you have someone other than Mr. Richards?
Correct. I purchased it up in Sacramento.
Okay, is there any particular reason why you came to Mr. Richards as opposed to going back to the mechanic?
Well, I live in Oceanside.
All right, so it was more of a proximity issue.
Yes, sir.
All right, now that I know her whole backstory about this biking world, what say you, sir? Talk to me about your situation.
Well, Your Honor, I'm a second-generation owner. My father started Richards Motorsports in 1980. We're a 9-time winner of the of the Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year. We're very proud of that reputation, sir.
What needed to be done?
My online research led me to believe that it was clutch and starter.
Okay.
And after taking it there, he said, "Do you mind if I look over everything, do a full inspection?" I agreed to that.
Yes.
And that's when I was told that I needed a new motor as well.
All right. In addition to the clutch and the starter?
Yes, and because of his reputation, because I thought he was working on it, it wasn't a red flag at the time.
All right.
But
you knew that there was going to be work performed as it related to the starter,
and the clutch,
and the motor. And that was going to total to be what?
About $800, just over $800.
Give me an exact figure. Do you know?
I don't have it offhand. I think he has
I have the receipt right here, Your Honor.
What was the total
invoice
amount?
Invoice is $845.
Does that sound about right to you?
Yes, sir.
Let me take a look at that invoice. And on the invoice, does it reflect the clutch, the starter, and the motor, plus the parts and labor for those items, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. There was a meeting of the minds that this is what's going to happen. This is what you're going to pay. Something went awry.
He still failed to disclose that he wasn't doing the work at that time. And he also failed to provide me with any evidence that the motor did need to be replaced. I've asked for it several times.
Seems to me, though, if you can't get him, having the chief mechanic is a pretty, it's not like there was some apprentice or someone who, just fell off the turnip truck all of a sudden and said, let me try to get my hand at this.
Right, but he also mentioned that they are very, very busy, so I think that there could have been some missteps in that chief mechanic.
When you ultimately got the bike back, your expectation was those 3 items, the clutch, the starter, the motor, should be working satisfactory and you wouldn't have any more chatter, as you indicated.
Correct.
All right. When the bike left your shop, were these things handled?
It ran like a Swiss watch, Your Honor, like a well-oiled machine.
Are you basing that on your personal observation or what Joe conveyed to you?
No, sir. We gave it some road tests.
Now,
Joe
when you
took
say
it.
we, I need to know who we're talking about.
Joe Rendini himself took it on the road and also on the freeway.
Were you with Joe when he took it on the road?
I entrust this man with no.
That's fine. What I'm saying is, so you don't have first-hand knowledge that it was even done.
No, I do, sir. Because
were you there?
I was at the shop, sir, when Joe took it out.
Were you there when Joe took it and did the things that he indicated he did?
I saw him leave the premises.
Okay. You
and
saw
we also
Joe on the bike drive away.
Yes, sir.
And at some point, you saw Joe come back.
Yes, sir. And we also
in between the time that you left and the time that Joe came back. In other words, if Joe said, I'm going to go get me a hamburger and a shake and sit here for an hour and chill, you wouldn't have known that. Fair enough?
I know Joe's work habits.
I'm not talking about his previous things. I'm talking about on this particular day. You don't have firsthand knowledge that Joe got on the freeway, did all of that, as opposed to him chilling with some fries and a burger and a shake.
I was not riding behind him, Your Honor. That is correct.
So you're only relying on, he's my guy, he's the chief mechanic, he has a strong reputation.
Yes, he does.
All right.
Coming up on America's Court.
Your Honor, we don't live in a zero-defect world. I have a reputable business. Like I said, it's second generation. I stand proud behind my whole team of licensed, experienced mechanics. This lady clearly has an attitude. She was uncooperative. She would not.
I can't imagine why.
And later.
So I come home and I see Shelly in her cage. She was inside the cage, but she was shaking. It looked like she was having a seizure of some sort.
Closed captioning provided by. If you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. America's Court is back with the case of Darlene Coleman, who is suing Eddie Richards for unsatisfactory repairs.
Why wouldn't you even protect yourself from liability, letting people know we don't do electrical?
Well, Your Honor, I brought in Mr. Davis, who's also an expert in that field.
This is Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Sir, step forward.
Carl Davis.
All right, Mr. Davis, you were telling me why you brought him in.
Yes.
How does he fit into this puzzle?
Well, he has his own business. It's been around as long as mine, maybe longer.
How long have you been in business, Mr. Davis?
1972, sir, the family started.
All right, you're going way back.
Yes, sir.
All right. And what's your area of expertise?
Well, we're qualified to perform all general repairs on foreign domestic cars and vehicles, but we specialize in electronics and electrical systems diagnosis.
And when we're talking about motorcycles, as you said cars, but you're also
Both,
including...
sir. Motorcycles and vehicles.
So you are the man when it comes to anything electrical for motorcycles.
Somewhat of competitors, but yes, sir.
All right. And you have referred business to him and vice versa in the past?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Even more reason to go, if it's something electrical, I'm going to have to turn you on to Mr. Davis, right? But Mr. Davis, I take it you had an opportunity to look at the bike?
I did, sir.
How did that come about?
She brought it to me and explained to me it just had the work that was just done on it. And
how did you know to bring it to Mr. Davis?
He was the other person that was recommended. It was between the two of them. It was a toss-up. I called Mr. Richards first. So when I was broke down on the side of the road and called him to let him know.
Called Mr. Richards?
Yes, to let him know that the bike just failed, even though I just left the shop. I didn't want to take it back to him. I didn't trust him anymore. So that's when I contacted Mr. Davis and had him take a look at it. Yes, I paid expenses to tow it there.
All right. Mr. Davis, what happened?
Well, the first thing we checked was the engine, the work that she said she had done.
No
it was obviously no problems, sir. Obviously brand new engine. It turned over quite well. Starter worked. The starter's mechanical. The electronics take over after you kickstart it. Mm-hmm. But that's where I noticed an issue. We, of course, checked the fuel. That's the next thing we do. And it's 3/4 of a tank. But when I turned the key, there was no gauge, nothing registering on the fuel gauge.
So meaning that something wasn't connecting?
Yeah, it's electrical right then and there for us.
Okay.
Because the connection's not been made.
What would have been the cost to repair that?
Well, we have to diagnose it first to find out exactly what the problem is. We can't make it up front.
Well,
but we did that.
You did that, right?
Yeah, we did.
And what would have been the estimate that you would have quoted?
Depending on where we get the parts from, to replace the whole harness and switches was anywhere between $200 and $300.
Right.
That would be parts and labor.
300 max.
Yes.
He told you were going to be looking at a maximum an additional $300. Mm-hmm. Did you pay that?
Mm-mm. I told him to stop.
Okay.
I'd had enough. I didn't trust either one of these men. I feel that they've gotten together like a couple of good old boys to tarnish my reputation.
Well, how did you know that the relationship between the two of them?
I found out after the fact.
You found out what after the fact?
After the fact, that they do work together. So I feel like they're trying to salvage their reputations and tarnish mine.
Okay. And where's the $3,395 come from?
For me to replace the bike, to get an 07 that fits me perfectly, to get it from someone else. And I have that Kelly Blue Book, which
I'll take a look.
I valued my bike.
Mr. Richards, did you offer to at least compensate her for the $300 that Mr. Davis would need to handle the electrical?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Any particular reason why not?
I offered for her to bring the bike back for us to inspect it and look at it.
Do you really think she was going to bring that bike back to you?
I don't see why not.
Because, again, stopping that day would have boiled my potatoes.
Your Honor, that's no reason to not bring it back. I mean, it's...
I didn't have... Do you hear me asking a question? I see the Blue Book value. Now, it says $31.95. Why are you asking for $33.95?
Because of additional expenses and registration.
Mr. Richards, anything else?
Your Honor, we don't live in a zero-defect world. I have a reputable business. Like I said, it's second generation. I stand proud behind my whole team of licensed, experienced mechanics. This lady clearly has an attitude. She was uncooperative. She would not...
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine that. The judgment will be in favor of the plaintiff. I'm going to award the plaintiff $300. I'm going to reserve that ruling, give her an opportunity to have you put that $300 towards the bike. And if the bike works satisfactory in a 6-month period, then that will be the judgment. If there's any other issues with respect to the bike, I'll allow you to come back and have the case be reconsidered.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because I get the sense that because of who they are, they have a vested interest in making you happy, right? And if between the two of them, if something's still wrong, well, then we'll just revisit it and go from there, all right? Does that seem reasonable to you?
It seems
Mr.
like a
Richards?
fair judgment, Your Honor.
That's how I roll. All right, judgment in favor of the plaintiff, case closed.
All rise.
Judge Ross has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant has been ordered to pay $300.
I'm relieved, but I'm still disappointed. I've got a breast cancer run next week, and I just don't know how comfortable I'm going to feel on the road.
I do agree with the judge's decision on this case. I think as a small business, you do have to be a good citizen in the community.
And coming up on America's Court with Judge Ross.
So I come home and I see Shelly in her cage. She was inside the cage, but she was shaking. It looked like she was having a seizure of some sort.
Closed captioning provided by... This is America's Court with Judge Ross. Alyssa Myers claims she had to make an emergency trip to the vet after her pet guinea pig was poisoned while under her roommate's care. Ms. Myers is suing Kate Nelson in the amount of $123.54. Ms. Nelson claims she only fed the guinea pig the food Ms. Myers provided and says the animal was healthy when she put her back in the cage.
Ms. Myers, we got a situation here with a guinea pig.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the guinea pig got sick off of cheese.
Yes, Your Honor.
I didn't realize guinea pigs can't have cheese.
I didn't either until, unfortunately, it happened.
How did the guinea pig get a hold of the cheese?
Just a little bit of backstory about who we are. This is my ex-roommate, Kate.
Yes.
We actually were friends. Freshman year, we met in chemistry class. We bonded over our love of science and boys.
And you guys decided to become roommates?
Yeah, we didn't know a lot of people.
No problems, Miss Nelson, with the rooming situation?
No, it was perfectly fine.
Right.
Did she always have, Miss Myers, have the
Get the guinea pig? No.
Does the guinea pig have a name?
Shelly.
Shelly.
Yes.
Let's talk about the situation where this caused a little bit of a rift between the two of you. What actually happened, Miss Nelson?
So I was at work. She texted me asking if I could take care of her give her guinea pig dinner that night because she had to stay at work late. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I go home, I feed the guinea pig, I give it its food. I think I locked...
Food that she had already prepared for it?
Yes, correct. The food that she had prepared, she had it in a Tupperware container in the refrigerator. So I took it out, I opened the guinea pig's cage, put the food in, closed the cage. Then I left for my bedroom, watching some TV for about 20 minutes, come to the kitchen and get water, and I realized that the guinea pig got out. It looks like the cage wasn't completely fastened, which I tried my best.
Coming up on America's Court,
So I come home and I see Shelly in her cage. She was inside the cage, but she was shaking. It looked like she was having a seizure of some sort.
closed captioning provided by. This is America's Court with Judge Ross. America's Court is back with the case of Alyssa Myers, who is suing Kate Nelson for veterinary bills.
And the whole time you're not there.
Yeah.
You're still at work.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So then she comes home like maybe 2 hours later or so.
All right.
And she
then
starts-
take me from there, Miss Myers. She
Yeah.
comes home. You come
So-
home 2 hours later.
Yes, I come home about 2 hours later.
Yes, ma'am.
Kate was not home. I was home alone. I come into my room.
I'm sorry, you had left by then?
No, I'm still in my room watching TV.
Go ahead.
Okay, and so I come home and I see Shelly in her cage. She was inside the cage, but she was shaking. It looked like she was having a seizure of some sort. So I start freaking out. I rush her to the veterinarians and...
Well, Miss Nelson's there. Did you say anything like, what's going on?
No, I didn't even...
She briefly started just yelling and screaming like, oh my gosh, I have to take her to the vet, I have to take her to the vet.
Exactly.
She didn't tell me anything, she just ran
Because
off.
I was scared that my guinea pig was going to die at any second.
How long had you had Shelly at that point?
About, I would say 8 months.
You take her to the vet, yes.
I took her to the vet and they actually ended up having her stay overnight, which is why I'm suing, because it was $123.
They had a guinea pig stay overnight at the vet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that where the $123.54 comes in?
Correct, yes.
And what did they determine after staying over for 24 hours and observing Shelly?
They observed that she was poisoned. Yeah.
By?
Cheese.
Do we know where the cheese came from?
So I was making lasagna earlier that day.
Lasagna,
It's
one of my
possible-
favorites.
Here's the thing, it's possible that, yes, if you're making, I meal prep, so like I make a bunch for like the whole week. A few crumbs may have fallen on the floor, a few pieces of cheese, but like I said, like I didn't see the guinea pig eat anything. It was just out for a second and I put it back.
Judge Ross's verdict when America's Court returns. You're watching America's Court with Judge Ross. This is America's Court with Judge Ross.
The question is, did you fail to exercise reasonable care as it relates to Shelly?
No.
You had cared for this pet before, which means that on previous occasions, you had also secured the cage that Shelly was in. On this particular occasion, you did not.
Yeah, it was
But it
a
wasn't
simple
anything
mistake.
that
Yeah.
was right. It was just an honest mistake.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even if there's a mistake in a situation and it results in liability, someone has to pay that cost. And so based on the evidence and the testimony before this court, the gavel has to come down in favor of the plaintiff. You're going to have to pay her that $123.54. The two of you aren't roommates anymore, so there's no more babysitting. But anybody who's watching this, those of you in the audience, be very mindful of the fact that when you assume a responsibility like that, even if you get no benefit, that sometimes you could be putting yourself in a position where you may want to think twice about doing it. $123.54 is your judgment. Case closed.
Judge Ross has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant has been ordered to pay $123.54.
I'm glad everything worked out just the way it was supposed to. Justice for Shelly.
I'll pay the money. I'm sorry the guinea pig got sick.
Follow America's Court on Facebook and Twitter. This has been a production of Entertainment Studios.